I'm just conscious that I've only got a few minutes left, and there haven't been very many questions. Maybe that's because you've just gone. But
yeah, sorry, just to add to that Senate inquiry.
Yeah.
The international student strategy for Australia. Actually, didn't throw a copy. Which is going to COAG short. They've actually, in relation to that, so there is actually a Commonwealth strategy for international students, which is being developed and will be available and ratified through COAG, which dovetails into the Queensland International Student Strategy as well. So it's not just a piece of work. It's just a Senate inquiry that sits on itself. There is a Senate inquiry, and then there is the next step and the next step. So the ISSA, they're calling, which is the International Student Strategy for Australia, which is going, I think it's in COAG sometime next month or so.
Excellent.
And I just, my staff left me out.
Yeah, ChildSafe website is www.child-safe, all lowercase, .org.uk. Well, keep in touch. I mean, I work with a lot of you guys from here as well. I've done some presentations in 2006 with George. Yeah. I really appreciate that. Okay, so let's just finish off. Has anybody got any questions that might help you in terms of what you're doing?
After your research and gathering of information, has there been anything practically, what practically have you done?
Can you speak up so we can hear you, sorry?
What practically has happened that you've implemented or strategies that you think could be transferable over in the Australian context?
Okay. The question is, what in terms of outcomes from what work has been done around setting up ChildSafe Charity, what have we done to actually try and support organisations like yourselves? And certainly in Australia, well, as much as we possibly can, given the lack of funding, that's always an issue. But the way the model of the charity works is that the focus to try and achieve the aim of safeguarding the prevention of abuse, which is actually very unique. This is the only charity in the world that I'm aware of that does anything solely on prevention of abuse in this very, very specific area of youth travel. Unless anyone can tell me different, I can't find anyone else anywhere in the world that's doing this. Now, it's based on links internationally with law enforcement agencies to get intelligence, and now the shoe's on the other foot. So what's now happening in places like the UK and America is that I'm sharing intelligence with them through their border agencies and through their state departments, for example, because we've got more intelligence on this than they have. And actually, it's taken 10 years for them to get interested in it. So only in the last 3 years has the UK Border Agency, for example, been set up to actually look at some of the stuff that's going on with visa students coming into the UK. So we're working with and lobbying governments and trying to get them to pick up on good practice models that exist in different parts of the world and try and bring those together. So that's number one. The main driver for the charity is for people like myself to actually go and do the work with organisations, and that could be consultation, on a one-to-one basis with individuals or with organisations. It could be going to do keynote presentations at conferences. It could be workshops, seminars, training sessions. We do risk assessment training. We do child protection training, specialising in this field. We do things like audits and reviews. So we go into an organisation and give you a health check around exactly where we think you stand up against the criteria for potential risk based on all these hurdles that I told you about that we're putting in place. And so there's a myriad of different hurdles that we can actually potentially put in place for organisations. Some are at no cost. In fact, much of it is at no cost for an organisation. Some of it, the cost is only your time to put some work in. I'm not going to do the work for you. That's the other thing. I get lots of organisations saying, can you write this for me? Can you do it? No, I won't. And the reason that I won't is that I'll help you do it, but the important thing is ownership. If you don't own it, you won't understand it, you won't have any responsibility for it. So it might be that I work with an organisation, an example might be Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. I work with them, they bring in international players from all over the world, and they put them into host families. I've been working with them for about 2.5, 3 years. We've totally ripped up all their policies and started from scratch, and over this last 2.5, 3 years, we've built the whole process back up from the ground up, and it's working fabulously. But other organisations want to do things quicker. Some organisations will want to invest money into it, others won't. The key thing is that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, is that you've done that audit, you've done the health check, and you actually start looking at aspirations. Where do you aspire to be as an organisation in the next 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, 5 years? And identify your areas of weakness. You know, you don't have a dedicated child protection officer, you don't have a mission statement, you don't have a child protection policy, you don't have a grievance process, you don't have links to your local safeguarding boards or your networks through the police or whatever it may be, and we can go on. But you don't have all these things in place. So which ones would you like to achieve first? How do you get there? Where's the milestones? And eventually you need to tick them off. The good thing with that is that if you're a company, for example, like one that I'm thinking of, last year they had 27 deaths of young people. That's one company around the. They're based in about 32 different countries. They had 27 deaths. Now, it doesn't take a great deal. You know, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out there's a potential problem here, unless you've actually got, when you go to the tribunal, when there's a hearing, and you're being called as a company or an individual from within the company to go and talk about the processes and procedures, I tell you what, it's a lonely place to be when you've not got the backup of processes, policies and procedures in place to actually cover it. And if you say, well actually we've been thinking about that for years, we just haven't got around to it, you know, how do you prove that? And so one of the things that I do with organisations is actually show them how to be aspirational, but evidence your aspirations. Because if you have a 3-year plan of milestones within it, at the very least, if the wheel comes off and you go to court or you go to the tribunal, you've got something to say, look, we've been working with this. It's a dynamic piece of work that this organisation is doing, and it's a 3-year plan. We're 6 months into it, and this is what we plan to do. You can't do everything overnight, you know? So that's why it's important. And these courts, these tribunals are not going to be expecting you to do that overnight, but what they damn well are expecting you to do is take responsibility for it and actually know that there's an issue. And if you're sitting there, you don't even know there's an issue, you're in trouble. And you know, there, but for the grace of God, go a lot of you, because you touch wood and it doesn't happen. But for many organisations, and lots in the UK just recently, we've had several deaths. You know, one Saudi Arabian lad kicked to death at a language school. One 16-year-old, he was 15, one 16-year-old girl who's just committed suicide because of abuse in the host family, walked out in front of a truck on the M6. So, you know, it goes on, these things do happen. It's only when it gets drawn into the public arena, into the media spotlight, do people start to look at you. And when they start to look at you, can you stand up to scrutiny? That's the question. Yeah. Sorry.